events coordinator at Books Are Magic, an independent bookstore just north of here. We're so excited to get to host this event tonight, but before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping notes to get out of the way. First off, of course, I want to thank the Bell House for allowing us to use this fantastic space for tonight's event. If you need to use the restroom at any point, they're just in that corner behind you. I want to say thank you to everyone who submitted questions beforehand. We can't guarantee that we'll get to all of them, but Jennette will have time towards the end of the conversation to answer as many as she has time for. And I know many of you picked up a book when you purchased your ticket. We do have additional copies of I'm Glad My Mom Died, as well as Susan's memoir, Empty, available for purchase tonight. So with all that in mind, it's my privilege to introduce Jennette McCurdy and Susan Burton, who join us tonight to celebrate the launch of Jennette's debut memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died. These two women don't need much, but Jennette McCurdy starred in Nickelodeon's hit show iCarly and its spin-off Sam and Cat, as well as in the Netflix series Between. In 2017, she began pursuing writing and directing. Her films have been featured in the Florida Film Festival, the Salute Your Shorts Film Festival, Short of the Week, and elsewhere. I'll finish it off by saying that her essays have appeared in HuffPost and the Wall Street Journal. As I mentioned earlier, Susan Burton joins us tonight in conversation. Susan's writing has appeared in Slate, Mother Jones, New York, The New Yorker, and The New York Times. The film Unaccompanied Minor is based on one of her radio essays, and she's the producer of This American Life. All right, that's enough for me. Without further delay, please join me in giving Jennette and Susan a very warm welcome.
Before, Susan, but I actually auditioned for the movie version of your essay, Unaccompanied Minors, when I was like 11 years old. I wish I too. Maybe I would have booked it. I didn't. So I think I'm going to read from the book. This is going to be difficult because I'll be page turning while holding a mic. Wish me luck. Thank you, Forrest. This is from Vignette 25. This is so cool. Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here. It means so much. I wake up at 8 a.m. I gotta start over my voice. I wake up at 8 a.m. Okay. I wake up at 8 a.m. on my Costco mat. My bunk bed is now overwrought with stuff, so I'm back to sleeping on the mat. I'm wearing my Revlon Runwalk 2002 tee. I like the design. It's got a lot of purple in it, which I'm into right now. I can't let Mom know I'm into purple since Mom prefers pink. She would be heartbroken if I suddenly announced that I switched my favorite color to one that isn't also hers. It is an honor that Mom cares about me so much that something like me having my own favorite color would devastate her. True love. Last year's Revlon Runwalk tee was mostly silver, and the year before that it was mostly blue. I know about all the Runwalk tee colors for the past 7 years because that's how long my family has been attending the annual Runwalk. We started attending the Revlon Runwalks after Mom went into remission for her stage 4 metastatic ductal carcinoma, a term I am well acquainted with because in addition to our weekly VHS viewing, Mom often has me recite it to casting directors. Everyone loves the story of somebody overcoming adversity. If you mention my ductal carcinoma, you'll get the sympathy vote. Mom's cancer really seems to come up organically on my auditions for The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and The King of Queens, but on shows like ER, I can wedge it in a little more naturally, especially if there's a character in the episode who has cancer. You know, my mother had stage 4 ductal carcinoma, so I really relate to the material. Mom always says that we go to the Revlon Runwalk to support women with breast cancer, which is so noble of her. Dustin once said under his breath that he thought Mom went more for the free cancer merch than the cause itself. But Dustin is a troublemaker and also Mom's least favorite child, which she even told him directly, so obviously Dustin doesn't know the first thing about Mom or her intentions. I'm rocking my oversized cancer tee and planning what poem I'll write for Mom this weekend. Since Mom's not a fan of me writing screenplays, I've taken an indefinite hiatus from those, but she's very supportive of me writing quick little poems about how much I love her, so I keep up with writing this way now. I'm trying to figure out what to rhyme with the word mommy when I realize my chest is kind of sore. More specifically, the nipple area of the right side of my chest. I reach my right hand up to touch the sore area, and there I feel it. A lump. Terror immediately fills my body. This can't be happening. First Mom and now me. The room starts spinning. I weigh my options. I can go wake Mom, tell her now, but that seems burdensome. Or I can let her sleep until 11 a.m., when I usually wake her up with a morning cup of tea. Well, I'd wake up earlier if I wasn't up so late stressing about money, Mom always says. Maybe if your father got a job that paid the bills for once so I wouldn't have to depend on a child. I don't know which to pick, so I do what any sensible, cancer-ridden tween deciding when to tell their mom does. I eeny, meeny, miny, moe it. Oh, sweetie. Mom half laughs as she runs her fingers back and forth along my puffy, lumped nipple on the right and then over my smooth, flat nipple on the left to compare. That's not cancer. Then what is it? You're just getting boobies. Oh no. The only thing worse than a cancer diagnosis is a growing up diagnosis. I'm horrified of growing up. First, I'm small for my age, which is a benefit in showbiz because I can book roles for characters younger than me. I can work longer hours on set and have to take fewer breaks by law. Logistics aside, I'm more cooperative and can take direction better than those 7-year-old scumbags. Mom is constantly reminding me how good it is that I look so young for my age. You'll book more, baby, you'll book a lot more. If I start to grow up, Mom won't love me as much. She often weeps and holds me really tight and says she just wants me to stay small and young. It breaks my heart when she does this. I wish I could stop time. I wish I could stay a child. I feel guilty that I can't. I feel guilty with every inch I grow. I feel guilty whenever we see one of my aunts or uncles and they comment on how much I'm growing up. I can see Mom's eyebrow twitch whenever they say that. I can see how much it pains her. I'm determined to not grow up. I'll do anything to stop it from happening. Well, is there anything I can do to stop the boobies from coming in? I ask Mom nervously. Mom breaks into a laugh exhale, the kind where her eyes wrinkle up. I know this expression well, the way I know all of Mom's expressions well. I have learned them inside and out so that I can behave accordingly at all times. No one else in the family seems to understand Mom's emotions. Everyone else walks around clueless, never knowing which mom they're gonna get. But I always know. I've spent my whole life studying her so that I can always know, because I always want to do whatever I can in any given moment to keep or make Mom happy. I know the difference between Mom being irritated and outraged. I know the difference between when she's upset at Dad or when she's upset at Grandma. Clenched jaw means Dad, tight eyebrow means Grandma. I know the difference between when she's a little happy, kisses me on the forehead, and a lot happy, sings Phil Collins. And right now, in this moment, where she laugh exhales and her eyes wrinkle up, I know that she's not only a lot happy, but a special, particular kind of happy. Mom is grateful happy. This is my favorite way to see her because I am directly the source of it. I've seen Mom be grateful happy when I book roles and when I side with her when she's in the middle of an argument with anyone else in the house. Mom is grateful happy when she feels seen, valued, and nurtured. What can I do to stop the boobies from coming? I repeat, leaning further into my question now that I know it satisfies Mommy so much. Mom looks down, the way she does when she's about to tell me a secret, like the time she told me Grandma has false teeth, or the time she said she finds Dad boring. I know something juicy is coming, something special, something just the two of us will know, something that will cement and validate our wonderful best friendship the way only secrets can. Well, sweetheart, if you really want to know how to stay small, there's this secret thing you can do. It's called calorie restriction. That's all.
It's so much fun to hear you read from this book, which I love. And that passage, like, it just encapsulates so much of what I love about the book. It's darkly funny, it's disturbing, it's beautifully paced, and it's a delight, which is like a weird thing to say about a book about abuse and trauma, but it is.
A real abusive delight.
And it also, I mean, like, I guess I was struck, as I was listening, it's also about, it encapsulates the way the book themes, right? It's like so much of your childhood and adolescence were defined by your mother's attempts to stop you from growing up, to stop you from developing, to control that part of your life. And the book is sort of the story of had been stunted, and finding your own path forward and finding your own voice, and really testament to that. I want to start with something like it's like thematically a little out of sequence, but it's the thing that's on the cover of the book, which is "I'm glad my mom died," and it's like such a provocative title, and like the book, the cover tells us something about how to read it. There's like a pink fern with like I think confetti popping out, so we're not meant to take it so like gravely seriously.
I hope it reads as confetti. Did you guys get the confetti? Okay, cool. I couldn't tell initially when I saw the confetti. I was hopeful that it didn't look, I don't know, like toilet paper or something sort of popping out of the base. Yeah? Okay, great. Cool.
But like, was there a moment like when that sentence like came into your head? Was there a moment when you were like, I'm glad my mom died? It's one of those things that you're not supposed to say, and you're also sort of not supposed to like feel or think. Like, was there a moment where you had that sentence enter your head?
Ooh. Yes. It was a song. I was writing a song for a one-person show that I was doing, and I didn't have a title for the show. This was one of the last songs that I was coming up with for the show. And I took the chords of, I'm gonna have to redo the chords now because I probably shouldn't take some of these chords. But I took the chords from Taylor Swift's song, I Forgot That You Existed, and I thought that it was me, but it didn't. And it's like this really kind of funky, fun, these keyboard chords. And I just started singing that I'm glad my mom died. And I was in my apartment alone singing that I was glad my mom died.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the moment where I felt like, okay, that's the title of, that's something, this feels really truthful to me, and it feels really celebratory and funny, and I like it.
Yeah. Had you felt that before though? Like, had you felt like gladness about it?
Yeah, I had. Yeah, but it definitely wasn't something that I put into as many words, and certainly not in front of anybody else. It didn't feel like a thing that you can say. People are like, oh, I'm so sorry your mom passed away. Actually, I'm glad.
Right.
Like, that's not really well received, so it definitely was something that I was self-conscious of, knowing that it would be received a certain way when I was much younger, kind of processing where I was at with my mom's death. But eventually I felt like, well, the fact that at one point it made me so uncomfortable to say it probably means it's that much more important to say.
Yeah, good.
Thanks.
Let's talk about your mother.
Oh yeah.
She had no boundaries.
Right.
And and no boundaries really, like in a way. Just when you were reading that passage, it opens with a description of you, getting off your bed. It's not even really getting out of your bed. And your mother's like lack of boundaries, it extended even into like the physical space of your home because she had a hoarding disorder. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about the house you grew up in and the sleeping arrangements and the eating arrangements and what it felt like to live there.
Yeah, we lived in a 1,200 square foot house in a town called Garden Grove that its inhabitants refer to as Garbage Grove. My brother always said it's because there's so much white trash there, so that's just to give you kind of a sense of what was going on. And my mom was a hoarder, so it was like floor to ceiling, papers and scraps and old toys and books, and she just couldn't get rid of anything, ever. There was always some sort of sentimental attachment to everything that was driven by her. It's actually like a form of OCD, is actually hoarding, and that's kind of the type that she had. And my brothers and I slept on mats for a good portion of our childhood. We got these like gymnastics mats from Costco because my mom had so much stuff that we didn't have space in any of the bedrooms, and it was a tiny house to begin with. So we slept on these little foldable mats, and we just unfold them every night. And we also ate on a mat. So we had a lot of mats for purposes other than being mats used in our household. I guess they were I guess my mom found some use. She was creative in that way.
You write about the eating mat. It's just called the white thing, like the white thing in the book. And like when it's time for a meal, you just get out the white thing.
They'd be like, Mom made Chef Boyardee, somebody get the white thing. And then people were like, I don't want to grab the white thing. Who's gonna grab the white thing? It was usually me.
Yeah. And there's a moment later in the book where you're decorating your house, and there's like a decorator who comes over and she wants you to like embrace animal prints, and you're not really on board with that. But I did wonder, it made me wonder about like your aesthetic now, and like, do you need to be surrounded by like very few objects? Like, do you need simplicity and austerity? Like,
I thought a few years ago I like really embraced minimalism.
yeah.
It's a fun thing to embrace. I'm like taking in less. But that was a big thing for me, and then I realized that everybody was taking in minimalism at the same time. It wasn't my mom was doing that.
Yeah. So your mom, so she starts sending you out on auditions when you're really young, when you're 6? Is that okay?
6.
When you're 6. And it's not something that you're asking to do. It's like definitely her dream for you from the get-go. And you start like, you're booking like background extra stuff, and you start like kind of working steadily. And by the time you're 11, you're like typing up your like kid acting resume, and you're typing up your special skills. And what's like, tell about the first special skill that you have.
It was like dance. She had, and then in parentheses, like jazz, tap, ballet, lyrical, musical theater, contemporary, like all the different types of dance. And then it'd be like pogo sticking, because once I did, and it was, usually the skills were on there because I had lost a job by not having the skill. So then my mom would have me practice the skill so I wouldn't miss out on the next opportunity. So like pogo sticking, I lost out on literally a Chef Boyardee commercial. This is a lot of Chef Boyardee plugs. I lost out on a Chef Boyardee commercial because I couldn't pogo stick. Someone was like, we're getting you one, and you're gonna learn how to do it 1,000 times in a row. So I'm like on the front yard, just pogo sticking for hours. And then the final skill, or sort of the most like coveted skill in child acting, above all the rest, is crying on cue. It's like the thing that every kid actor's mom is like, my baby's gonna bring those tears. They're like eyeing each other in the rooms, like whose daughter's gonna cry harder. It's the sickest thing I've ever seen.
There's an amazing scene. It's a really short scene, but you just execute it so well. The scene where you're trying out for the Harrison Ford movie. Do you want to just tell that story?
Yeah, I was trying out for the beloved comedy film Hollywood Homicide. And I went in and something just like hit me. I guess my life hit me in that moment, and I just started sobbing. And I was like hysterically sobbing. I mean, so hard, like just heaving and like convulsing, and just like it was all coming out. And then the casting assistant was like, well, you got the role, kid, but you want to do it again just so we can see it? As if it were like some sort of Cirque du Soleil skill or something. It went a little, I didn't cry as much the second time. I felt like they were less impressed and I left disappointed.
But you booked it.
But I did book it, And then I couldn't bring the tears on the day. I kept trying to cry, and I was like drinking water to try and like make, there's a lot of like things that you can do to try and make yourself cry. And I won't be sharing them right now. But I was drinking a lot of water, that was one of the things, and then the tears just didn't come, and I guess it didn't make the movie any worse, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really nicely done scene, and as I got further in the book, it just struck me as really poignant too, because you got so practiced in pretending to feel, not only for your work, but pretending to feel what your mother wanted you to feel. And by the time you were in your adolescence and early 20s, you really kind of lost touch with what you really felt, with your own wants and needs and desires. And that's one of the things you write about in your recovery is learning to identify sort of feelings, identify and name what you felt. So as all this is happening, right? As you're booking these parts in like the Harrison Ford movies, you're getting more and more exposure. You're finally on iCarly. You're on Nickelodeon. You're a big star, and everything is still. Your mother is still really controlling everything, even as you enter your mid-teens. And one of the details that a lot of the coverage of you in the book over the past several days was picked up on is this detail that even into your mid-teens, your mother insisted on showering you and even shaving your legs. There was a physical closeness that was abusive, And it gets to the point that even when you escape, even when you move out, you have your first night in your own apartment. Just tell the story of what happens the first night you're in your own apartment, your very first own apartment.
I will say too, if anything, one aspect of that, I wish my mom had maybe shaved my legs a little sooner. It was nasty. The first day I got what I thought was my own apartment, and my sister-in-law at the time had helped me to sign a lease, and I was excited about being able to be out on my own, as scared as I was. And then my mom moved in with me. She just didn't leave. She pulled out a copy of The Way We Were, and she was like, "Don't you want to watch Robert Redford with me now?" Robert Redford. And I'm like, "You like it more than I do." But I do love Robert Redford, so we did watch The Way We Were, and then my mom stayed with me for I want to say a year and a half after that, a while after that. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like not only staying, she was like sleeping in your bed. She was really,
Sleeping in the same bed, showering me, and her boarding also came into effect at my apartment there.
I mean, one of the things I wondered about, because at that point in the story, so your mother had been diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer when we were 2, so that passage that you read alludes to that. And your whole childhood, you're like haunted by the specter that the cancer could come back. And I think at the point she's in your apartment, the cancer has come back, and she's sort of shrinking and sick, and it struck me that she needed to keep you a little girl for so long, and then all of a sudden you are out of the house, like you really aren't a little girl anymore, and it's almost like she became a little girl, like it was like some kind of like role flip.
Mm-hmm. It felt that way.
Yeah.
It really felt that way.
Yeah.
Her voice changed. Her voice became younger. Like, you know, people do like baby voices and relationship, like it became that, where she'd be like, "Hi, Ned," and like doing a little like voice.
And then how old were you when she died? You were 21?
21, yeah.
Okay. And then I think there are at least 2, but possibly 3, like significant things that happen for you the week that she dies. What are those 2 or 3 things?
I don't remember.
Oh, you don't remember?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the first time you throw up.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Thank you. It was like a week of first for me, I think. I know it was my way of not coping, but trying to cope. So I threw up for the first time. I went to a tattoo parlor to get my first tattoo. I wound up chickening out on that. No tattoos. But I was going to get a TIE fighter behind my ear. I love Star Wars. And then there were a lot of, I had my first drink of alcohol. I had a sip prior, but it was my first drink of alcohol.
Yeah. And so it's the first time you make yourself throw up, the first time you make yourself purge. And bulimia is one of the things you write about so well in the book. Not only in terms of being really specific and detailed and writing very honestly about it, but you write about like what it did for you, which is something I think that that is hard for people who haven't had eating disorders, as you and I both have, to understand sort of what a person gets from it, what need it fulfills. It's a maladaptive coping strategy, but it is a coping strategy. And I wondered if you could just talk a little bit about what you got out of bulimia.
I'm so glad that you asked this. I worked with an eating disorder specialist initially, early on in recovery, and he had said to me, "What do you get out of your eating disorder? What value do you find in your eating disorder?" And I looked at him like, "What are you talking about? I'm here to recover. I'm here to get over this thing. Like, I recognize it as a problem. Isn't that a good thing? Why am I acknowledging its value?" And he said, "Well, obviously it serves some purpose, and it's provided a lot of value for you. So if you don't identify what that is and come to terms with it, how are you going to find more value beyond it and in places other than it?" And it was really, useful and impactful advice to hear, and maybe something that I wasn't quite ready to hear, which I think made it hit all the better. For me, bulimia was a way of, I couldn't name or face any of my emotions, so binging was an act of stuffing the emotions down, and then purging was an act of like releasing the emotions. So it was, as I see it, just a way of not having to deal with the emotions. I feel so physically depleted, so emotionally depleted afterward that it felt like, well, now I don't even have the energy to deal with whatever that confusing blur of emotions was that I was feeling 5 minutes ago, because now I've binged and purged and it's done, and I can move move on with my life, and it felt effective in that way. And now it makes me really sad that was the best tool I had at the time, but I do recognize it as unfortunately the best tool that I had at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it comes across really viscerally, and in so many scenes where you're resolving, like, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to do it, and then you do it, and you're just like, the relief you felt just comes through, and this was so part of you, and it conveys just how hard it is to give up and to recover, but you do recover, and you also write with complexity about recovery and how it is uneven and it took years. And one of the scenes that stands out to me in your writing about your recovery, so you worked with the therapist you mentioned. He was like therapist number 2, but there was therapist number 1. And therapist number 1, her name is Laura. And you work with Laura for a little while, and you get to this day where it's like the first 24 hours you've gone without binging and purging. And this is like a really big deal. And Laura uses that session to say, like, okay, let's talk about some of the stuff that's like underneath these eating disorders. And she starts asking about your mother. And it's the first time you're really sharing like details about your mother. And Laura suggests that your mother might have been abusive. And you walk out the door, and you literally never go back. And that night you go home and you just, your response is violent. Like you're purging, you're throwing up blood, like it's a violent response. And what was it, like why did you need to keep your mother on a pedestal then? Like why did you need that story about your mother? What was so hard about confronting this other story about your mother?
I had no identity without her. And trying to form some semblance of an identity without having had those key developmental years to develop one, or some version of one. I get that the 20s are like inherently stumbly, but to not have had a childhood and an adolescence that were lived for myself, I just felt like I can't face whoever I am. I don't want to face that, and it makes me so sad. I wish I would have faced who I am sooner.
Yeah, first of all, you're 30, so you're pretty. You're young compared to me. So I do think you faced it in good time, Jennette. Yeah.
Chef Boyardee.
But and one of the things we see that happens in the book, right, is that you've been kind of silenced for so long, and you find your voice. And one of the kind of turning points, and I think you even sort of in the moment realize it is a turning point, is when you're in your 20s and you get the news that Sam Cat is ending, and it's too bad, but Nickelodeon has this special present for you, and there's just one condition attached to the special present. So it's they want to give you $300,000 to essentially never talk about what happened on set. And even though you're like really struggling and you're sort of not able to kind of like stand up for yourself in all kinds of ways, you just know that is not something you're going to agree to, and you just say no, and you won't be silenced. And so I guess I'm wondering 2 things. If you want to just lay out a little bit for people who might not know what it was that they didn't want to talk with you to talk about, but then also, the past 2 weeks, because of your book's release, you've been asked to talk about it a lot, and I wonder how it feels to be able to talk about this thing that others tried to silence you about, that others didn't want you to talk about.
I appreciate you asking. The most genuine response I can give is that I feel annoyed, I guess, when people ask about it.
Yeah.
Because I think the book is so much more significant than that, and what I'm talking about, and the emotional arc that I'm exploring, my relationship with my mom, the things that are the most important about this book are, I think, they can't be reduced to any sort of headline. And for there to be sort of just like these headlines of Nickelodeon, and I'm just like, you're missing the point, guys. Come on, kids.
Yeah. It is interesting though in terms of your, and I don't mean to press on it.
No.
But it is a moment. It's just such a concrete moment where somebody tries to silence you, and you fight back. It's like, I think it is critical to the arc of who you
Exactly,
yeah,
which is exactly why it made its way into the book, because anything that is in the, I don't know, whatever, 200 something pages, it's there because it serviced the arc, the emotional arc that I was trying to tell, the arc of kind of where I started and where I came to, as well as how my relationship with my mom evolved and formed that. So anything that's in there is only in there because it in some way informs that arc along the way.
Yeah. I want to ask you about your process. I mean, the book is told in like I said, it's really well paced. It's, you found this voice. I mean, one of the most impressive things about the book is the book starts when you're 6 and it ends when you're almost 30. And you have this voice that like accommodates all those ages. It's really smooth. There's a lot of ease. It's so unforced. And it's told in a series of vignettes. How did you sit down and make a list of kind of like important scenes or images or moments or days, or what was the process of finding all these stories that you wanted to tell and then sequencing them?
I am horrible at outlining. I'm not a big outliner. I sent my editor Sean a document in the beginning that I'm sure terrified him because it was like 14 pages of the most like jumbled, confused. There was no semblance of sort of organization to it, but I just kind of brainstorm and then I just start writing and then I find the shape kind of in later drafts. So it was brainstorming and finding, like, I would write out whatever I wanted each vignette to be. I think there's 90 something vignettes in the final draft, and I would say like, oh, I want there to be a vignette about, my mom teaching me calorie restriction, or I want there to be a vignette about mom showering me or my first kiss on set or whatever. And so I would go from like a couple words per vignette and then just write from there.
Yeah. And did you, there's so many, kind of modes you're working in. Like it could be sort of a book of personal essays or comic essays. It's a coming of age memoir, but it's also, in the mode of the child star memoir. And I was thinking of, child star memoirs that I read as a kid, which like are going to really date me. But it was like, Patty Duke, Call Me Anna, and Preparing for a Little Girl Lost. But I wondered if you thought about like the genre of child star memoir and what you gleaned from that, and if there were any kind of takeaways, things you wanted to do, things you didn't want to do.
I don't think I'd read any, to be honest. I hadn't read any. I hadn't considered that. Honestly, I didn't even really consider the genre of memoir. I really initially said I want to write a good book, and the fact that it happens to be about my life is secondary. I think there's a lot of aspects of my life that were very entertaining, and the ups and downs, and I think they provide a lot of, hopefully, humor and connection for whomever reads them. But beyond that, it was really just, the goal was to write a good book. And also not like my life is very, I'm just like, I sit at a computer writing, there's not the highs and lows to talk about. There would be, there'd be nothing there to explore now. I like to think that I was discerning with knowing what was valuable and worth sharing with others about my life and what was like just for me to process.
Yeah. What do you think your mom would like make of this? Have you thought about that? Has she been like a presence for you these past couple of weeks as you've been talking a lot about the book and a lot about her?
It couldn't exist for the obvious reason that it's called I'm Glad My Mom Died. But beyond that, it wouldn't exist because I wouldn't have any, I wouldn't be able to pursue anything that I wanted if she were still alive. Like if she were still alive, I'm sure I'd still have eating disorders. I'm sure I'd still be like acting in sitcoms. I'd be the wife who's just like, dinner! So like, it wouldn't be very fun. I think I'd be living a much more inauthentic life and definitely, certainly not writing.
Yeah. And then one more kind of like process and creative question, and then I'll get to questions from the audience. But so you did a one-woman show with the same title, right? And it was terrific. I did see it live. I saw a recording of it. How did it feel? Like, what did you get out of writing the book that you didn't get from performing? Like, how is the story different? I think having written it down.
The one-woman show is a musical, and there's a lot more there's a lot of interactive elements to it. And then the book, I cover a lot more of my childhood. The show focuses more on those 3 years post my mom's death, and this focuses a lot more on my childhood.
Yeah. I'm going to take questions from the audience now.
It's really hot in here, right? Yeah. I'm like sweating. I don't know why I work so.
this is a big question, but it's one that that I think a lot of people can identify with. How have you allowed yourself to mourn your childhood without letting it consume and taint your outlook on your future? And the questioner says, "I'm terrible at balancing this."
I appreciate that question so much. I love getting questions like this. Like, it just makes me feel so much connection to you guys. So thank you. How do you mourn your childhood and not let it inform your future? I mean, for me, it was definitely facing it directly and facing the stuff that hurt the most directly. No matter how uncomfortable it was, and it got very uncomfortable. Sometimes it is very uncomfortable. And having also, this kind of applies also to eating disorder recovery, but having a new thing to put your energy into once you feel like you've done a lot of that processing. Like, I felt like I got to a place where after with the eating disorders, I was like, well, now I have all this extra. I was spending so much of my time thinking about this thing and obsessing and cycling, and I needed something else. So that something else for me became really writing. And I think if you're processing your childhood and really like excavating a lot of that stuff in an uncomfortable way, I hope that you have something on the other side of that that can be warm and inviting and inspiring to you, compared to whatever the trauma of your past is that you might be working through.
Yeah, I do. I definitely relate to that aspect of what when those eating disorder thoughts go away, something else needs to step in to fill them.
Yeah.
This is a good question too. What's your advice for someone that is learning to heal but their mother is still alive?
I'm gonna say boundaries.
Somebody just yell, we all want to know.
I really think boundaries. There's a great book. God, I mentioned it earlier and I forgot to look it up, and now I'm mentioning it again and I don't remember the title. It's by Robert something or other, and he literally, it's very helpful. He goes, I remember in therapy, I was like, what is my therapist, she was like, you need boundaries. And I'm like, what is that? That sounds like something I don't know. And she referred me to this book, and it was very helpful in terms of just like laying out concrete. Here is what a boundary might look like for emotional boundary, mental boundary, physical boundary, environmental boundary, relational boundary. And I think it's really worth a read.
Yeah.
Or something or other.
What advice do you have for artists who want to share difficult truths in their work but are afraid of how they will be perceived or interpreted?
Ooh, I'm excited to see your thing, whoever that is. Whatever manifests from it. I think doing the work privately first and foremost for yourself, having that work for yourself is really key. For me, it was really key, being able to know that I had done a lot of processing on my own. And then also I think it was helpful for me, and I hope it's helpful for you, to know, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but to know what's worth sharing with people, and like to really be honest and discerning with your life, because what's maybe interesting in a therapy session or a revelation for you might not be for a reader. And I think finding the way of finding the right approach for how to explore your life, so that it's worth people's time is important.
Yeah. How do you personally cultivate a creative community, friendships, mentors, etc.?
It's so interesting because it just it happened for me. I couldn't have like planned it myself. I have people in my life now that are so creative and talented. Some of them are here tonight. They're here, and it just is so inspiring to me to watch their work and to watch what they do with their processes and their like commitment to their craft. That's such an annoying answer, but it's really truthful. I couldn't have made it happen myself, and the people around here are just incredible.
Yeah. You do actively, I mean, I'm thinking of your podcast, and you do sort of actively reach out to people
and sort of invite people into your creative community, which is really a great thing.
Through Instagram DMs. That's how I reached out to you. That's how I reached out to Susan. I DM'd her, like, I love your memoir. Will you please come on my podcast?
Yeah, and then you came on my podcast, essentially.
It was really exciting.
Yeah. Let's see. So this book coming out, so you were extremely brave and inspiring for sharing with the world the dark reality of both your personal childhood and the entertainment industry at large. How does it feel now that your book is coming out and igniting conversation? Does it feel overwhelming and scary, or like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders?
I think both. I think all of the above, A, B, C, D, all of the above. It is, there were, there have been ups and downs to the week of just being like, oh my God, it's coming out, oh my God, it's coming out. Today I was last night I was so excited I could hardly sleep, and I watched National Treasure at 4 in the morning. I'm so excited. And also to see that it's like sparking important conversations that I think are, in some of these conversations are certainly long overdue. Talking about parental abuse and manipulation and narcissistic behavior. It's like, we need to talk about these things. Why are we not talking about it more? It makes me so happy.
Have people been reaching out to you and sharing their stories?
Yes, a lot of Instagram accounts that are like, this one hasn't reached out, but in the vein of like the Mother Wound Project, just people working on healing relationships with their mothers, and they've been so supportive. It's been inspiring to me.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. How do you overcome someone's perspective of you / who they think you should be versus who you know you are and what you want to do in life?
That's great. Oh my God, these are good. I think. So which I'm sure you guys know from even the passage that I read, but I was so much a people pleaser for so much of my life, and so much just tuned to not only what my mom wanted, but what my agents and managers wanted, or what the people on sets of the shows that I was on wanted, or what networks wanted, and I was cued into everybody else's feedback about me so much more than I was cued into my own internal feedback about myself. And walking away from all of those external sources of feedback to be able to face inward was really important. So I think if there's any way of doing that for yourself, if there's any way of, it doesn't have to be a hard line, like I'm not talking to whatever, it can just any way of tuning inward and checking in with yourself, I think, is so much more worthwhile than whatever external feedback. Because also a lot of times if there's like mass external feedback, it's like not necessarily helpful, or could be reinforcing the wrong version of you, or not the most authentic version of you.
Yeah, you have such you're so good at giving advice, and it's one of the things that that is really nicely done in the book, is that you write about your recovery and the process of like looking inward in a way that just feels very kind of like this is how it happened for me, and it just seems very doable. I was thinking as you were talking the moment when you're doing like worksheets as part of your eating disorder therapy, and it's just like very concrete. Like we see like the idea of kind of like looking inward can seem very abstract, but there's something about the way you write about it that makes it feel like very practical and doable. And that's
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing worse than like a Psychology Today article that's like, just be you, and then she's like holding the limbs and floating through space. Great, when I'm me, I don't float through space.
What are some words of encouragement you have for someone, on the advice tip, but what are some words of encouragement you have for someone struggling to find consistent motivation to complete their goals?
The thing that came to mind for me is making sure that that's a goal that you want to make happen. Because I feel like sometimes, if it's not coming naturally, if it's not feeling like it's just working, maybe it's not the right goal, or maybe it is.
Did you write consistently at like a certain time every day, like when you were working on the book?
When I first woke up, my thing is I would like make my coffee, I'd wear my little like boba slippers, and then I'd sit at my computer and type. At first I was doing 1,000 words a day, and then I set it to 1,500, and then 2,000, and then I was like, that's too much. That's not gonna
Yeah, realistic goals.
yeah, I didn't want to make the 2,000 one happen.
What is the best advice you could give to someone in their early 20s?
Oh. So people don't talk about this either. I feel like the 20s came and I was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't know it was gonna be as challenging as it was. I thought it was like, oh, I'm coming into my own adulthood and everything's gonna stay the same from 21 on, baby. And that wasn't the case. But I think maybe acknowledging that or being aware of that, I hope that might be helpful. And that's, I was gonna say allowing yourself to make mistakes, but then I like kind of petered out on that one because I don't know if that's like a hard thing to say. That doesn't really, that's the Psychology Today advice.
And then how have you grown and blossomed from the younger version of you, and what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I hope my legacy, so grandiose, is one of sharing uncomfortable truths and being honest about the things that are really, really difficult to say, and finding humor in tragedy. And then the blossoming, how have I blossomed? I feel like I can't answer that one myself. I have to not answer that.
Yeah. Has the book, like, have you had conversations, for instance, with your brothers, like, since, I mean, maybe not, this week, but, like, I assume they read the manuscript before the book came out.
They
Like,
did.
oh, they did?
I want everybody to read it once. Yeah,
Oh,
but I
wow.
dedicated it to them, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about something that, tell me about a conversation you had with one of your brothers connected to the book, to something they read.
I actually got dinner with one of my brothers maybe a week and a half ago, and he was just being so supportive and so kind about the book, and he has maybe a stronger point of view or a harsher point of view, I might say, toward my mom that I'll leave to him to share if he wants to at some point. I will read his memoir if he writes one.
Okay.
Good. I think maybe the time for one more question. Let's see. We talked, maybe I'll just move back to something we talked about at the beginning, which is the cover. The book has a darker title, but the colors on the cover are bright and fun. What was the process of designing the cover, and did anything influence your choices?
So my mom's favorite color was pink, so I knew I wanted to be wearing pink and have everything be excessively pink. And I knew I wanted the urn with confetti. I'll tell you a really bad pitch that I had, but I'm glad it didn't happen. Oh God, it was like me on the cover looking like eeks with a dead person's arms wrapped I think we made the right choice, but now I'm done. So we did this shoot, and Corey Angela was the amazing photographer who shot it, and Faye Orlov is a fantastic artist who designed the cover and had the whole idea to make it really this retro kind of throwback vibe. I think she did an amazing job. Woo, Faye! And then also, my expression was important to me because it is a title that I mean sincerely, and I didn't want to be like jumping through the air, like throwing confetti. I wanted to have my expression be somewhat wistful and hopeful and optimistic without being over the top or too flippant. And I think we did it.
I think you did.
I did.
Jennette, I'm so glad that I was able to celebrate this with you and to talk with you again. Just real congratulations.
I don't know what official things to say next, so I'm going to hope that somebody will appear and say that. Come join us, come join us.
All right. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you to Giovanni and Juana from Pro Bono ASL for providing So, a few notes about how the signing line is going to work. We're going to have folks line up around the back to come onto the stage from this small staircase to my left. We're going to have one at a time on the stage. We ask that you only have books signed, no other.
I gotta pee.
Yeah, go for it. You're good. Take a break. Jennette will be signing and personalizing books. She'll also be able to take photos. We'll have someone from her team up here that you'll be able to hand your phone to, and they'll snap a photo of you and Jennette together. Please don't rush to get in line. We do have time for everyone to get their book signed. So we'll have some folks from Books Are Magic and from the Simon team here to help guide y'all to the line, and I'll come through with sticky notes for the personalizations. All right, folks are moving, so that's it for me. Let's give Susan and Jennette one last round of applause.